Alright? Good. I couldn't hear anything because you're inside the camera, but I'm assuming you're alright. Let's talk about SWR, SWR, or VSWR. That's to give it its proper name, VSWR. Now, I've explained in 1 or 2 videos how to set your VSWR, how to read your VSWR. But the questions that I've had pop up in the old email box and in comments. What is VSWR? Should I be scared of it? Now that's an interesting topic, because I find a lot of people, and I was a bit guilty of it when I first started in radio, not that long ago, only 15 years ago, when I first started in radio, I was guilty of it. I was afraid of SWR, or SWR, as CB is slang. SWR is slang for SWR. What it actually is, standing wave ratio, or the full name is voltage standing wave ratio. Now, I was a bit scared of it because the people that I learned from told me how to set my antenna up. They said it must be as low as possible. It must be below 1.5. It must be. You know, they really drummed it into my head to get it below 1.5, to get it at 1 to 1, to be perfect and not settle for anything other than 1 to 1. Perfect. So I was afraid of it. Every time I set an antenna up, whether it be in the car or home base or anything, I would spend hours trying to get it to 1 to 1. Trying to get it right down there so the needle didn't even flicker. And a lot of the time I did achieve it because I spent so bloody long trying to do it. Sometimes it just ain't possible. But this is where people get caught up in it. Now I did a video recently where I went down in a field. And I took a wire. I took a CRT 9900 radio. I took a wire, just an antenna. It's just a wire with a balun in the middle. And you can't set the VSWR with that. The VSWR is set by how you orientate the wire, what orientation you have it, and where it is. Yeah, you can't adjust anything on it. And the way that I set it up, to start with, it was just over 2, which was amicable, you know what I mean? But it wasn't good, and I thought I can do better. So I moved it, and I managed to get it to 1.8. Well, I say managed to. I literally picked the wire up and put it on a different tree. And the VSWR after that was 1.8, which is perfectly amicable. You know, the radio can cope with that, no problem. But some people commented saying that VSWR was far too high. I shouldn't have let the radio transmit with that. Well, this is a common case of people just being afraid of it. Now, it is important to remember, some radios, in fact more radios than not, will react well to some kind of, well, SWR, basically. I was going to say signal coming back, but that might confuse some of you. Some of them react quite well to it. For example, I haven't got it anymore. I've still got a Lincoln Mark 1, but I had a different one, and that one reacted to an SWR of about 1.5, 1.6, 1.5. If it was below that, it would work perfectly. It would be fine. But I always found that if I'd set my antenna up on the car, or if it was a wire, and the VSWR was about 1.5, 1.6, I've had enough of that, and I'll just start talking. People would say that I have a better signal and I'm clearer. But I can spend some time in that same location, putting the SWR to 1 to 1. And people would say, oh, you're not as clear today. Now that might just be coincidence, and radio is a lot of coincidence. Radio is just pure hit and miss, because signals, radio waves and all that kind of stuff going around in the sky, nothing will ever be perfect. Even those of you that listen to BBC radio, Radio 1, Radio 2 and all that. I'm sure, I mean, they've got millions of pounds worth of antenna equipment to get their signals across the country. Yeah, or in different countries. You can listen to it in bloody France, Germany. The signals go hundreds of miles. But I'm sure you've probably noticed that there are days when it just ain't as clear. You're in the same spot. I mean, where I work, I listen to Radio 1. I can be in exactly the same spot, and most of the time it's crystal clear radio, good radio. Other times, if there's atmospherics that aren't quite right, maybe there's a storm brewing or something's happening, it's not quite clear, it's a little bit fuzzy, not quite right. Same with you and your CB, right? There's no point in trying to get it absolute perfect, and maybe my example there was a bit over the top, but I'm hoping I can drive the point home, not to get caught up in the VSWR game. As long as it's below 3, you're okay. You're in the safe zone. And I'm holding this because I am going to demonstrate. Well, I'm not going to demonstrate, but I'm going to show you. Well, I might as well show you now. Anyway, 3 there, as you can see on this meter. That is the start of the red. If it's focusing. 3 is the start of the red, right? So, really, anything below 3 is perfectly fine. Anything below 3 is okay, but you're obviously aiming to get it as low as you can. 2.5, in my opinion, is the line between okay, if you just want to have a quick, if it's just for quick bursts and, you know, hello Jim, stop Jim, that sort of thing. Over 2.5, 2.5 and over, alright, don't worry too much. But if you are setting your radio up to have actual conversations, so you're setting up a home base rig and you want to sit there for hours chatting to Bob down the road, keying up for long periods of time, you do want to get below 2.5. In fact, you really want to get below 2. This is just my opinion, by the way. And the reason for that is, and we're going to touch on what someone said actually a little bit. Someone, actually there's 2 things, but one doesn't really. Someone said, I can't remember what video it was now, someone commented about when I was talking about VSWR, and I was saying, if you run more power, and because when you run more power, the VSWR will go up, all right? And so you may set your VSWR for 1:1 or 1.2 on 4 watts, but your radio's got a variable power knob on it, right? So you set that, and then you turn the variable power up to, let's say, 50 watts, and you look at your meter, and it's saying 1.5, and you're going, my giddy aunt, I set it to 1.1, now it's 1.5, there must be something wrong. No, it's not. You're putting out more power, more signal, and VSWR is, standing wave ratio, is the ratio of your power. I'm probably not explaining this the way that a teacher would explain it in the ham course, for example, but I'm explaining it how my mind sees what I've learned. You're putting your power, your 50 watts out. It's coming, a certain amount of it is coming back. And the meter is reading what percentage of it is coming back. Alright? So that's really it. I don't really know how else I can explain that. Oh, that's what I was going to go on to. The more that comes back into the radio, because it's going straight back into those outputs, that's why you get heat. So if you've got a VSWR of 1, yeah, it's the needle when you key up, the needle doesn't even flicker. It doesn't. You think to yourself, is the needle broken? It's not even flickering, you know, because the SWR is it's 1. There is nothing coming back. Well, there is, but according to your meter, there is nothing coming back. Your radio will still get warm and hot because it's still transmitting, but it won't get massively hot. You got to, now let's a scenario where you've got a VSWR of 1.5, 1.8, something like that, you will notice that your radio will be hotter to the touch because more of that power is coming back, and it just gets created into heat. I mean, I'm trying to explain this in the way that you may understand, because I'm assuming that you know nothing. I am fully aware that a lot of you watching this do know what I'm talking about, and you probably know a hell of a lot more than me. But I'm basing this video in this series at people who know nothing about it. So, in a nutshell, the higher the VSWR, the hotter the radio will be when you're transmitting, not receiving. When you're transmitting, the hotter the radio will get. That is the danger. So, I don't think you should get caught up in the VSWR thing. Just look at it in the way that I've just explained it, and the way I've explained it is the way that I've set up any rig throughout the last 15 years, and I've not had much of a problem. I've blown up a few amps, but I've never blown up a radio. And the reason I've blown up a few amps is because I've simply just not had a fan on them, and I've keyed up the fire so long and they just get too hot, and you have to just put a new pill in it and away you go. So, as I've said, just to summarise, I think I've got this feeling that I've sort of gone off on a bit of a branch, a bit of a tangent, and I've left something I've stopped and I've left something, but I can't think what it is. Oh dear, I do that quite often. Just so much stuff that wants to come out of my brain and tell you lot that I end up just going off on these little branches, and then I don't finish what I'm saying. I know it's a terrible habit, and a lot of you are probably saying this is awful, but I'm just me. So, in a nutshell, right, when you're setting your VSWR, have in your mind, what do you want from it? What do you want from your radio? What are you aiming to do? Are you setting up a home base rig which is going to be permanently set up, and you intend on having long conversations with Margaret, Mildred and Alfred down the road, and anybody else you come along with? In which case, try to get it as low as you can. That way you've got more margin for wear and tear on your coax and antenna, because as the coax and antenna wear, and other weather conditions, if it's damp outside, if the antenna's damp on a frosty morning, it will be slightly higher. So if you set it low, there's more margin for it to go temporarily higher due to moisture and go back down again when it's dry. Also, your radio will be cooler through those long conversations, and there we go. If you're just setting a rig up in a car, for example, or with a wire, you know, if it's just temporary and you don't really intend on having, perhaps you're just doing a competition, you're in some kind of competition somewhere, and you're not going to be chatting, keying up for 1-2 minutes at a time. You're literally just going to be going blah 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 blah, somebody's replying, and you go blah blah blah, somebody replies, that's it. A VSWR of 1.5, 1.8 isn't awful. Now, my opinion, right? Everything that I'm ever going to tell you is what I've learned, and from my experience over 15 years of playing around with CB radio and ham radio. Nothing can beat an antenna that is properly tuned and properly set up, right? So, oh, I should say we're quickly going to touch on matchers and tuners. I haven't got a tuner to show you, but there are some questions, so I'm just going to add it in on the end of this because I think it does fit in with the old VSWR thing. Because what you can get is you can get what's called a matcher, which is really just a cheap thing. It's not a matcher, just matches. You can get a tuner or an ATU, an automatic antenna tuner. An antenna tuning unit, I suppose, is what it's really called. Now, you can have an antenna which isn't resonant on the band or frequencies that you want to use it on. So if you just plug that antenna into your radio, the VSWR goes through the roof. But you can get a tuner, put that in line, And the VSWR magically on your meter will be 1. Yeah. So that device, that tuner, is tricking your radio. Really, it's just letting your radio see a perfect 50 ohms, 1-to-1 SWR, so it can transmit perfectly. It can throw out the best signal that it can ever throw out. That goes through the tuner down the coax. Well, it goes through the tuner, but the second that it goes out the tuner, it then becomes subject to that high VSWR that the antenna is presenting, because it's not resonant on that band or frequency. The tuner takes up all that stress. The tuner handles that VSWR, that signal coming back into it. Your radio can't handle it, which is why it damages it if it was subject to it. But the tuner is like a sandbox in between the antenna, which isn't resonant, and it's throwing back a lot of that power. I don't want that, throwing it back into that tuner. If it was to go into your radio, it wouldn't be very high, it would kill it. But the tuner can handle it. That doesn't mean that your signal's getting out particularly well. No, it doesn't. And a lot of people think that it does. And I did to start with, until I learned exactly how antenna tuners work. Because someone said to me once, oh, you can, now you've got your license, you can go on, I don't know, it was 12 meters or something with that antenna on your roof, a CB antenna. And I was like, yeah? How do I get the SWR then? Oh, I just put a tuner. So when I bought a tuner, plugged it in, poof! I'm on 12 meters, I'm on 10 meters, I'm going all over the place. And then someone else said to me, who knows his stuff, he said, right, now is time for you to learn. Your signal isn't getting out very well because your antenna's not resonant. The tuner is just tricking the radio. And then I learned from him and from just research how an antenna tuner works, and that what I've just explained to you in a nutshell, I'm trying to simplify it, is how a tuner works. And why that is relevant here is because we're talking about VSWR. There is no substitute for a perfectly tuned and set up antenna. Good VSWR in a good location. You can have a perfect VSWR, but if the antenna's in a crap location, well, the signal's just hitting stuff, it's not going out into the atmosphere, it's not going to be any good. Equally, you could have an antenna which is in an ideal location, right, not necessarily on the top of a mountain, because the signal then could be going over the top of everything below it, but in a good location on a bit of a hill, perfect, so the signal can radiate out and go to everything around it. But the VSWR is 2.5, or even 2.5. But the signal still gets out really well. It's because there's nothing blocking it. Alright? What I'm trying to say is, in a nutshell, I've summed it up several times and then carried on speaking. I know that, I'm fully aware of this. If you're still watching, well done. Let me know where you are in the world, please, and if you're finding this series interesting, because I just can't help but keep talking. I'm so sorry. But right, I'm gonna finish now. So don't get caught up in it. Try to get it as low as you can, but if your VSWR is 1.5, 1.8 and you're not intending on doing loads of long conversations, don't worry about it. If you intend on doing loads of long conversations, get it as low as you can. That is it. Simple as that. Have we got anything else to talk about? Don't think so. No, we covered that. I touched on tuners, which I didn't really intend on doing, but then it popped into my head, so I've done it anyway. We are going to get, well, I have got some tuners that I'm going to show you, manual ones and automatic ones, and an old matcher as well, an old joy match. I'll show you and I'll demonstrate how they work. But bear with me on that, because I'm moving this whole place around and everything is not here. So all my equipment is other places. when I unpack it all again, I'll demonstrate everything about tuners, and we'll learn all about tuners. But you shouldn't need a tuner for CB though. So, you know, it might be going a little bit out of the realms of CB. Although it might be useful for if you're going to be going on 555 and things like that, I suppose. Maybe. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please comment if you found any information in this video useful. Also comment if you didn't find it useful at all, because I like constructive criticism, right? So I can learn from the things that you think I've done wrong, and I'll repair that and I'll do it differently next time. And yeah, nice one. See you later. Take care. All the best.